Good morning, Father Wade, on this November 18th, 2018. That's funny. Can you tell me, Father Wade, what is the sermon about today?
The sermon today is about Jesus and his capacity to both shatter our illusions and replace our illusions with God's truth, God's love for us.
In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I went to seminary in New York City in the late 1980s, and I remember my class of seminarians, one of the first things that we did, we liked to get away from the seminary from time to time. What a great city to do that. We went to Trump Tower, and everybody was totally entranced with those escalators at Trump Tower. I remember that like yesterday. We also would take the subway down into the Central Business District to buy half-price tickets off-Broadway and Broadway shows. We had to find discounts. None of us had a whole lot of money. And so I would remember we would go to the World Trade Center, get off the train, and step out, and there was one of those booths, half-price ticket booths. And I had a little meditative habit. There was a bench, one single bench right outside one of the towers, that it was empty. I would lay down on the bench and look up. And as you would look up, you could see the side of that tower, and it just seemed to go off into the heavens. And I remember thinking, this is really impressive that they could build this building. And what it stood for is American ingenuity and the capacity for human beings in science and engineering to create unbelievable things. Now, we've had that ability for many years before that. The Empire State Building was a stunning revelation to the world of what can be built. But I can remember looking up there, it was almost like a meditation. And it reminded me of how grandiose and amazing that building was. But at the same time, it also reminded me that I live in a secure country. So I think all of us had our own reasons for grief on September 11th, 2001. The sheer loss of life, the demonic aspect of what happened, and what those men did. We have memories of the planes crashing into the buildings, the horror of death and aftermath. But for me, the shocking thing was the genius of how those buildings were brought to the dust. The way the planes hit, exactly the way they did, exactly as they planned it, and those buildings crashed down. I think about that every time we come to this lesson in the gospel. If you are a Jewish person in the first century, the one lasting testament to Israel as a nation and to the Jewish faith was the Temple Mount and the Shrine of God, the Holy Temple of God. As pilgrims would come on festival occasions, Pentecost, or whatever the festival might be, they would come from Galilee and other parts of the world, and one of the access points from the valley would be to walk around the side and do a series of switchbacks on foot until you get around the Mount of Olives coming from Bethany. And suddenly you see the temple. And it has a gilded gold appearance. And if it's sunny, it would be blinding. So the pilgrims would see it, and their heart would race. And there were songs written devoted to that profound sense of joy in seeing the temple. The temple is where God was. God was trustworthily in the temple. So it was not an illusion in the hearts of the Jewish people that when they saw that temple, that they were going to where God was, and they would be forgiven their sins because God would forgive them there. And so the dependence on that sense of the permanence of the temple as a sign of God's presence, this is just an aspect of Jewish theology. There were always prophets that railed against what they saw as temple idolatry. Nevertheless, Jesus and his disciples are in Jerusalem, and in a very reverent and dutiful way, one of his disciples says, "Oh, look, isn't it magnificent? Look at those large stones." And these large limestone blocks are, to bring that together, kind of like the pyramids in Egypt. To build that temple was an engineering marvel. And it was amazing to see the size of the stones and what it took and how secure that made that building and how it gave evidence that God was here and that God would maintain this. And what does Jesus say? No, these stones will be tossed down like rubbish. Jesus shatters the disciples' illusions. Jesus shatters, we're disciples, our illusions. When I think about it, 9/11, I think of one of my very favorite hymns. It's called Micah, and it has a verse, and it says, "Towers and temples will fall to dust, but God's power, hour by hour, in which we can trust, is our temple." God's power, God's love and presence is our temple and our tower. I think that preaches, but I don't know how to get there because I need security. I want to have some trustworthy sense that I'm going to have health and some measure of wealth. And I could become very fearful very quickly if I think either of those are threatened or the people that I love are struggling with health or wealth. And by wealth, I'm not talking about great riches, large buildings. I'm talking about the money to live on, the daily bread of life. Fear is inevitable. Matthew Dowd, in his book, A New Way, that we discussed with him earlier at 9:50 at Huffman Hall, he said you can't suppress your fears. You can't just pretend like they're not there. You've got to acknowledge the things you're afraid of. But you also, as Martin Luther King wrote, you've got to be willing to negotiate with yourself about what you're afraid of. There's got to be an adult within us that says, am I right to be fearful? In this case, am I right to wall myself off? Are we right to wall our nation off? Are we right to turn away from others because we're afraid? Carolyn Huffman, in her book, Bloom Where You Are, she said, I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of not succeeding. I'm afraid of developing dear friends because then I'm responsible to care for them. I'm afraid to have children because then I have to love them, but what if I fail them? This is the human journey. But when Jesus shatters an illusion that we have that we're going to have great health forever, or we're going to be immune to the markets and all that sort of thing, when Jesus shatters that illusion by telling us the truth about ourselves and the world we live in, he doesn't just leave us in shambles. like the World Trade Center. When Jesus invites us to grow up and face the things we're afraid of, he wants to replace it with himself. With himself, with his love for you, for me. Now that love that Jesus has for us doesn't suddenly make us certain about our future. It doesn't make everything okay. Life is unpredictable and difficult. But what I know is the God that created this universe and sustains this universe and came amongst us as a human being, that God in Jesus Christ has experienced everything you and I can imagine, has walked the cross of sin and brokenness and pain and tragedy and loss before us and alongside us. Now you might say, that's not good enough for me. I want to be happy, safe, and positive and secure. I do too. It's an illusion. That's an illusion. Jesus sets before us purpose, mission, and inspiration to be a part of the solutions in our own life and others, to negotiate with our fears, to respect our fears, to honor our fears and the fears of others, and to ask for higher angels, better angels to serve us in ways that we can serve others. So today I invite you, first of all, to just take a breath and think about, are you telling yourself the truth? We're all in denial about something, friends. But God, in Jesus Christ, God wants to replace the illusions that we carry about our future and our moment-by-moment life. God wants to replace that with the presence and mercy and compassion of Jesus. That maybe the things that are most disturbing to us can quiet down a bit. So when you come forward today to take the Holy Communion, I invite you to invite Jesus to shatter some of the illusions that keep you falsely protected. It's hard to do sitting in a room in church to do such a thing. But I do, as you come forward, receive communion and receive the blessing of the priest. I invite you to take on that work of accepting the unpredictability of life with an open and grateful heart that you've been given life. For me, the fact that I know I've been given life and I can live it with hope and faith, for me that's good news.